I mean, if you want to look at it, if you want to look at your state of mind when you are in that position, I think back to when I first went in to see an IME doc. I I was in a mental state of, I'd cleared acute withdrawal, but I was deep in post acute. My life had just completely fallen apart. I was under a tremendous amount of pressure. And I don't know if people understand what it's, well, you wouldn't understand unless you had this experience. But if you're taking a whole bunch of any kind of substance, especially a mood altering substance or an antidepressant or whatever, and then you go off of that, it's very difficult for at least a few months, depending on how long you've been taking the substance, to even think straight. So I think you could argue that you almost don't have the capacity to consent, given the circumstances, the power differential, what's on the line, and the fact that they are hiding information. It's not like they're coming out with the whole information when you go into an IME.
No,
they're just asking questions and you're answering, and you're taking a leap of faith that doctor is doing what's going to help you. Yeah. And they know that, and they are very good at using that to, they make you feel like, oh, don't worry, we're going to get everything, like the first guy I went to, he's, don't worry, man, we're going to get you back to work. And I'm like, what do you, those are two conflicting statements, man. Back to work. Like, are you insane? I had not gotten to the point of considering that in any way, shape, or form. I was trying to make sure I didn't die, not like, don't worry, we'll get you back to work. Like, how does work even come up at the conversation right now? I'm in an office here being examined, basically one step away from being Section 5 and being sent to a inpatient treatment center against my will, basically, or coerced into it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Very vulnerable time.
It is a very vulnerable time.
So I wanted to clarify another detail as we're kind of moving through this, that in addition to urine testing, you are assigned a monitor. You are assigned an individual who will check in with you by phone. In my case, it was weekly. I know that over the course of your time in that contract, that those instances of phone calls kind of gets a little bit further apart. But you're assigned an individual who checks in with you, and in the monitoring agreement that you sign, it says that this person is not your therapist. They're not your counselor. They're just sort of there to check in on you and see how you are complying with the agreement, and if you have any concerns. But they are also trying to build a rapport with you, and they're also just trying to understand who you are a little bit. And actually, my experience with those individuals was largely positive. I know individuals in our community that had negative ones, but the individual is not your therapist. But there's an interesting piece of language in the agreement that you're asked to sign, and it says, I understand that in the event of escalating behaviors of concern, a letter may be written outlining these concerns by my monitor to my designate. So that is saying that if you say to your monitor, I've been going to my counselor, and I'm just feeling really low. I'm feeling really shitty right now. I'm really stressed out by this whole thing. I'm not sleeping so well. I'm having fights at home with my partner, whatever that may be. How are we interpreting escalating behaviors of concern? To me, like that is a language that can so easily be interpreted or misinterpreted by the monitor, and then that could directly impact how long you're being monitored for, or the frequency of your urines. They may say, "Oh well, boy, Nathan didn't sound so good on the phone today. We're going to make sure he goes for an extra urine this week," or something like that. That's concerning to me.
Oh, it should be concerning to everybody. I mean, first of all, for some reason, you've got a medical review officer who's I don't understand why they have to have any credentials at all, really. I mean, other than, if you wanted to make use of that time, then the best way to do it would be probably like an addiction, like a psychologist or I don't want to say addiction counselor. The ones that are accredited are pretty bad. Sorry, that's been my experience. I'm sure there's good ones out there, but this is not a job that requires an MD,
Right.
right? I mean, if the terms are not written out objectively to indicate what behaviors they're supposed to report on, then you're basically your job, and this is how I dealt with the situation. This is how I'm sure many people deal with the situation. Is when you go to check in, you give it your all. You want to be perky, you want to be optimistic, you want to be.
Yeah.
I'm ready to list off the 12 steps. Right? If I can spin them out at will. You want to be prepared for that, just in case they pick up some indication that you've got something going on, and then they decide that maybe they don't like you or whatever, and they go talk to the addiction physician, and before you know it, you're into another year of monitoring.
Yeah.
There's no recourse for this, and it's completely it's not anything that's tracked. It's not quantitative. I don't understand how people who are in these positions they must see that every time a patient comes in to see them, it's probably, I would imagine if somebody did I don't know what you to do, a reality TV show or something, but it would be the same pattern for almost everybody. You'd go in, you'd be shocked. What the hell is going on here? You signed a contract, they send you away. You're so dazed because of what just happened. You don't have time to even comprehend your rights.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you get out of treatment, you come back and you see this person. You've learned some things about how fucked up the system is. So, but you're still pissed, mm-hmm. So you're you're probably laying low, but saying the right things for the first, month or two. And then it dawns on you that this is for real. This person now has a lot of power over the duration of this contract. Mm-hmm. And so you said, well, if I'm going to keep going, your best chance of success is to be as polite and on board with everything and never display any relapse behavior, as they call it, which is basically thinking. It's just, it's comical to me, because if you were in the position of doing this job for, I don't know, at least say 2 years, would you start to notice a pattern? You think you might, right?
Yeah. The question that I always got from my monitor that I look back on and chuckle was, Corey, what's your number out of 10 today? And I would usually say every week I got that question. For our listeners, I'd be curious if that's a common thing. Yeah. And I would usually say I'm a 7.5, because I would figure,
that's good.
I would figure
give yourself a little
lower
leeway.
Lower than that could be a behavior of concern, and higher than that may be unrealistic, or they may think I'm bullshitting them, or
manic, right? Like they're going to be watching. Yeah. I don't know about this guy. He's
a 9.
Yeah, he's been in there. Like, this doesn't make sense. He's either using again, or now we've got ourselves a comorbidity, psychological problem, right?
So this is not fostering a trusting relationship. If that's the concern,
this is the whole problem. Like, why can't we just do this? Why can't we do it right? If you're going to have this structure where, you're going to be monitored, you're going to be doing these check-ins and stuff like that, shouldn't there be at least one aspect where you can be honest?
Yeah.
Most people don't have it, even one there's not one touch point in the entire 3, 5, 7, infinity for some people contract where they can talk to anybody in that structure and be honest.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
And this is for me why my own therapist became so important early on, was that was my touch point. That was my, I could say all those things, and and say like, this is what's going on with the monitoring and that contract and these people. And I think you're right. To be able to have that is so important.